texture like sun lays me down. With my mind he runs throughout the night. No need to fight, never a frown, with golden brown. Every day it's just like the last, on a ship tied to the mast. Through distant lands, takes both my hands. Never a frown, with golden brown.
Welcome to this video, my chess friends, and I'm going to read this statement out to you because it's quite profound. It says that indeed the single best predicator of an individual's chess skill is not the amount of chess he's played against opponents, but rather the amount of time he's spent sitting alone working through old games. Now this quotation was taken from a book, Walking with Einstein, which was a study of the cognitive process, particularly with regard to thinking and to memory. But it's been advocated by some of the world's best players. For example, David Bronstein, wonderful creative player, chess legend. He advocates playing through master games in his book The Sorcerer's Apprentice. And he even gives a method for doing so, which we are going to examine today. Grandmaster Andrew Soltis, in his book Chess Study Made Easy, also advocates looking through master games, and he gives a method similar to Bronstein's for doing so. The first world correspondence champion, Australian international master and correspondence grandmaster Cecil Purdy, he says he learned to play chess this way. He would cover up the moves of the master with a piece of paper, try to guess the move, and this is how he progressed in chess. So if you want to become a strong chess player, it's imperative that you play through the games of chess masters. Now, if you're a beginner, you might think, well, wait a minute here. I don't understand what is going on. But that's not the important point. You're only looking for points that are salient to you. That is, the points during the chess game which you find intriguing, or you don't really understand, or you would like to try to understand. Just the points that stick out for you. Now, Bronstein, in his book The Sorcerer's Apprentice, says, and Andrew Soltis, by the way, Grandmaster Andrew Soltis, says you should go through a chess game 3 times. 1 very quickly. Second time we go through it, we look at for points that we would like to clarify, points that stick out to us. And the third time you go through it is really to look at it in depth, look at the variations and what would transpire if a different move was played. So I have a master game here. It's from 1988, and with white pieces is Karsten Hoy. And he is a grandmaster from, I think it's Copenhagen in Denmark. And he plays the very famous Boris Gulko. And we'll try and apply David Bronstein's method. We'll simply click through it and try to get an impression of what transpired. And it's fairly easy for us to do. We simply can click through the moves on a computer. We see it's a Coley game against the Queen's Indian setup. Knight comes to the king side. Bishop provokes some type of weakness. Bishop drops back. And here the game begins to get critical. But again, we're just trying to get an impression of what transpired. White sacrifices material to open up lines against the king side. Sacrifices the exchange. While the black king is drawn out. Is restricted. F5 is played. Check. Wow. Queen is under attack in this amazing move. Knight takes d6. And it doesn't save black. Because even after the queen is taken, white can deliver checkmate like this. So this is what we want to do at first. Just quickly go through the master game. Just get an impression of what happened. And the second time that we are going to go through it, we're going to look for salient points that stick out to us. And the points that you might think are irrelevant or don't really matter, but they're the points that stick out to me. And I'm going to try and understand why they were played. So d4, e6, inviting a French defence. Grandmaster Hoy declines the invitation and plays knight f3 and gets into a collage system against the Queen's Indian. And there's nothing that sticks out so far. This move is interesting, d6. It appears to me to be a little bit double-edged because although it takes control of e5, it does nothing to challenge the centre, and white has this beautiful square here on e4 for its pieces. So it has some advantages and disadvantages, but the point is it sticks out to me. And I'm going to try and understand the pros and cons of that move. Knight comes, it's a lot of manoeuvring. And this is an interesting move because the knight is protected. So why play bishop to g5? And this would seem to be the answer here, h6. It's simply a provocative move. To provoke some type of weakness in the black king side. I like it. It's one of these moves where the threat is actually greater than its execution. I think that's a saying that's been attributed to Aaron Nimzovich. I don't know because I haven't read any of Nimzovich's books, but I think I've read something about them. But an interesting move nevertheless. Queen c7, and this is a very subtle little move. I'm interested to see the reason why this is placed, probably to create a battery with the queen along this diagonal here. A very subtle little move. It's interesting. Again, this is of interest to me. Why bishop to d5? And it's probably to stop this idea of queen to d3. The bishop would come to here, stopping the idea. And this is why white played b3. Black creates his own battery. Queen d3, as we said, creating a battery. And wow. g5. Because what will happen is when the knight comes back, as it does, this will create weaknesses. As it does in white's pawn structure in front of his king. But rather interestingly, they cannot be exploited at present. Because the queen protects the f3 point, this knight has no way of coming into the position. Quite simply, they cannot. This weakness here cannot be exploited at present, so it's not essentially a weakness. And this is really interesting. h4. Sacrificing material to open up lines against the black king side. So rather than white's pawns being weak, it's in fact this move is looking at these and highlighting the weakness of these pawns. Black takes, knight e4, queen c6, king makes way for the rook to come to the g file, and here it gets really, really interesting. Look at this, in exchange sacrifice. Of course this is forced, this move. King takes g7, but why not? Why not knight takes g7? Well, I'll look at that in depth later, but we'll just say that king takes g7 for present. Bishop takes. Why not rook to g1, for example? Rook can come here giving check. Why not rook to g1? I need to look at that in depth later. We'll just follow the game. Bishop takes h6, check. King takes. Now the rook comes to g1. What about knight after rook to g1? What about knight to, for example, f4, attacking the queen? Why doesn't that work? I don't know, but I'll find out. Well, I'll try to find out. f5 is played. Queen e3 gives check. f4, and this amazing move, knight takes d6. What happens if the pawn takes a queen? Well, I'll find out in my analysis later. Suffice to say that the queen took the knight, and there was no way to stave off checkmate. So this is the second time I've went through this game, simply looking at points that are salient, that stick out to me, that I want to find the answers to. Why was this move played? Why was this alternative move not considered? And we'll go back to some of these points. So this is the first move I liked. This little subtle move here, because it creates, of course, a battery, as we have already said, where the queen will come here. And black tries to stop this idea. He's probably planning on bringing the bishop to here. White makes sure that that does not happen. Black creates his own battery of queen and bishop. Again, knight to h4. Queen d3. It looks like a mistake because of this move g5. But as we have seen, even after the bishop exchanges itself for the knight in f3, these pawns are not really weak because they cannot be exploited. Bishop g7, h4, as we've said, g takes h, knight e4, making use of the e4 square because of this move that was played d6. Black was unwilling to play d5, and we can see the double-edged nature of this move here. And here the tactics really begin. After this move, rook takes g7, check. Sorry, rook takes g7, it's not check. I apologise. Now in the game king takes g7, what happens if knight takes g7? Well, we try and imagine it in our mind. Knight takes g7. Bishop takes h6, looks like the most forcing move, pinning the knight. So we imagine this in our mind. Then probably f5 is the next most forcing move for black. But then comes rook to g1, hitting the pinned piece. And I don't think that that can be very good for black. So this is the reason probably why the king took on g7. We'll just check it out. Knight takes g7. Bishop takes h6, as we said. f5, most forcing probably. Rook to g1, hitting the pinned piece. Rook e7, defending the pinned piece. And queen to e3. Wow, because even if the pawn takes, we can retake with the bishop, scooting this queen and this rook. The queen has got to move. Say it moves to the back rank, and we will win the exchange, and our position will be awesome. So this is the reason why black did not play knight takes, and instead he played king takes. Because knight takes was simply good for white. But you can see the process, chess friends. We're involved in this game. We're not simply taking on information. We're actively and mechanically involved in this game of chess. We're increasing our tactical understanding, our visionary understanding. We're simply involving ourselves in this game of chess, and it can only be for our benefit. Bishop takes. Now, is it forced? Well, it probably is, because black took. Now, why didn't black simply move away? Well, if he moves to g8, for example, with the king, then a move like the knight can actually move anywhere, and the queen is coming to h7, and it will be mate. So yeah, the move is forced. Rook to g1, and here I was wondering about this move, knight to f4, attacking the queen. Now why not knight to f4? What did black play in fact? He played f5. So why not knight to f4? Well, again, we can threaten some type of mate here if we can move the knight. So if knight g4, even if the knight takes, we can give check. If the king moves to h5, we can mate him with rook to g5. If the king moves to h7, for example h7, well, this is simply checkmate again. Amazing. So yeah, that is why knight to f4 was not possible, and instead f5 was played. But again, you can see the process. We're analysing this game. We're looking at alternative forcing moves, and we're getting a real insight into what in fact happened. Queen e3 is simply ignoring the threat. f4, and now this awesome, amazing move. Knight takes d6. Now, can the queen in fact ignore it? And I don't think that she can. And that is probably why black took. Setting up the battery. And of course, once the queen is taken, well, you have rook to g6, checkmate. So this is how, dear chess friends, we can learn from master games. We go through them quickly, simply getting an impression of them. We go through them again, looking for salient points, points that we think are interesting, that stick out to us. It does not matter if you don't fully understand what is going on. You're simply looking for points that stick out to you. And then when you go through them a third time, you look at them in depth, asking questions. Why was this move not played? Why was this move played? Was this move really forced? and you will increase your chess understanding, your tactical vision, all sorts of good things, simply by going through master games. So thank you very, very much for taking the time to watch this little chess video. I do hope that it provides some practical benefit and is good advice, and I sincerely wish you well with your own chess. Take care and goodbye.